sister from another mister writes in this morning. She says, I voted for Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. Brother Nate, oh so great from Chicago. Kudos to Yvette. Feeling you. Green and gold. Nice. Alrighty, let's bring on now. I'll present to maybe some, but I'm going to introduce with honor the sitting Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Governor Justin Fairfax. Welcome back, my brother.
Thank you so much, Brother Flowers. Always a pleasure to be on with you, and thanks to your great listeners, the Voices of the Village. It is Election Day here, June the 8th. I encourage everybody to go out and cast their ballot.
Absolutely. Let's go back, though. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to 2017. You had previously run and lost for statewide office, and the power structure in Democratic politics gave you no love. And what did you do against the current? You not only won lieutenant governorship, but you did so by honoring the most votes in the history of that office. Talk about your undaunted perseverance and vision for Virginia 4 years ago.
Yeah, Gary, I've always been focused on the people, and I've always been focused on making sure that they have the opportunity to succeed and to rise and have economic security. That's been the passion of my public service, and so that's really what animates everything that we do, and that's what we carried forward to the people, and that's what we've done in this race as well. It's really just focused on the needs that we've heard all around communities throughout the Commonwealth.
And I've always said in politics, you can't, politicians or elected officials, particularly, because the difference between a politician and an elected official, I'm going to get to that in a few minutes, but elected officials can't speak for meaningfully or effectively speak for people they don't speak to. And you made your way around the state speaking to ordinary folk and getting their views on what was good, what was bad, and what was ugly in state government. And you had the temerity to vocalize their opinions. So I want to give you kudos for speaking to the people. But also, you're the first candidate from my research statewide that did not take money from Dominion Energy. And I'll lead off with that because Dominion Energy in the Commonwealth of Virginia is a monolith. It is also, a monopoly. And because of it, they spread their money around, and most of the politicians, and I use that word deliberately, take the money and stay in their box. You denied the money and dared to have a bolder vision. Talk about your choice to really take on the good old boy system in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Well, I think, Gary, in order to really create change, you've got to listen to the people. And this is something that, I modeled myself after when you look at former Governor Doug Wilder, who was an outspoken champion for the people. He too...
And not scared. Like him,
right.
You're not scared.
Yeah, that's right. And that's right. He faced significant odds, and yet, he always trusted the people and reflected, what they were concerned about. And so that's, really what we champion. And so if you look at our policies, we focused on, healthcare in Virginia. I, as you know, cast tie-breaking votes to expand Medicaid. So now 550,000 more Virginians have health insurance today as a result of those tie-breaking votes and the wins that we had there. I've cast tie-breaking votes to legalize marijuana here in Virginia, becoming the first southern state to do so. We have fought for higher wages to make sure families can succeed economically. I put forward the most transformational investment plan in our education system in the history of Virginia, called our 40-30-10 plan. So we'd rebuild all of the public schools that are at least 40 years old with a $30 billion investment, and to do that within 10 years. We'd also raise teacher pay above the national average for the first time in the history of Virginia, and we'd guarantee every young person a summer enrichment opportunity or a job to make sure that they can.
And that's bold vision. But I'm not all for this good old boy system because I believe they intended to politically stain your name so that you could not enjoy the same well-earned office statewide that they get unearned. And in that, it was your voice. I remember a year and a half ago, in March of the pandemic, everybody was, mumbling, you got to close the universities, Well, Governor Northam sat on his hands, did nothing. It was your public letter to the governor that then was the impetus for state universities closing and saving our babies from COVID. Then it was your idea, again, to extend the moratorium going forward. Talk about your vision your vision as the second man in charge, if you will, or the second person in charge in Virginia, when you had a governor who was so passive that you had to really be the leadership in the Capitol. Talk about that.
Well, Gary, we certainly recognize the sense of urgency that existed. And, I advocated, as you mentioned, a number of things to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and to keep us all safe and to, get to the point where we are now, to be able to safely reopen our economy and schools.
Name them. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the universities. I also advocated for closing all of our schools, our public schools here in Virginia. And on the date that we announced that recommendation, we had 77 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Virginia. 77. And today, obviously, we are closer to 700,000. And so what we knew is that we had to get ahead of this curve. We had to make some tough decisions in that moment. And I think that's resulted in a lot of the success that we have seen in terms of Virginia's navigating this, unprecedented pandemic here. And so, among the other recommendations, we advocated for more economic support for our small businesses because forcing them to close to deal with this pandemic obviously created significant hardship as well in that community. For our nonprofit faith communities, they also struggled. And so we wanted to step forward and say, it's critically important to make sure that people are supported through this time of crisis. And so, that's what we tried to do is to lead.
And you did. You didn't try to do anything. You did it, and you did it with bold leadership. I'm gonna say this. I've been in and around politics at the local, state, national, and international level for 35 years. And very few elected officials are really worth their salt. And I'm going to give you three categories of politicians first, and then I'm going to differentiate to elected officials. There are politicians who, for any, piece of silver, will advocate whatever because they are pawns. There are politicians who just want to see their name in lights, okay? And then there are politicians who are just placebos. They get elected, but they don't do anything. They're just there to get the pension and the perks. Then there are elected officials in rare air. You are one of those. I argue that Adam Clayton Powell was the most effective black elected official in the history of the United States, followed only closely by Harold Washington of Chicago, Maynard Jackson of Atlanta. And then at the state and local level, I'll bring in Governor Douglas Wilder and Mayor Henry Marsh. You're in that category to me, where you're not afraid. First of all, you're very competent. And all of the men that I just said, and women like Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan, okay, and Maxine Waters, okay, Barbara Lee, all are very competent. But at the same time, they have the courage to stand up and swim against the political currents. And that is why I have respect for you. And I just wanted to say that again publicly for the stand you've taken. Now, Reverend Jesse Jackson taught me, and you already know, in warfare, if you're hiding in the trench, if you're ducking in the trench from the bullets, once you stand up, once you take a courageous stand from the trench, that's when you take the bullets. And you've taken political bullets, but you have your dignity and you have the respect of people like me who know politics and know what happens behind the curtain. So I just wanted to thank you publicly.
Well, thank you so much for that. That is tremendous high praise to be mentioned with those great leaders, and we try to always again stand up with courage and fight for the people, and that's really, I think, what these times call for. Is that
I don't know what your time frame is, but we'd like to go to commercial break and have you stay on. Do you have the time to do so?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
2 minutes on the other side.
So, Voices of the Village, please, if you have a question, comment, or kudos for Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, please dial in at 804-788-0990 and toll free.
Joyce 101.3.
Welcome back to the Gary Flowers Show, Tuesday, June the 8th, 2021. We have with us online Governor Justin Fairfax, the Commonwealth of Virginia. Love to hear your Voices of the Village. If you have comments, kudos, or questions for Governor Fairfax, please dial in at 804-788-0990. Toll free, 833-990-1013. My beloved Sister Lorna writes in, good morning, Gary. Just voted for Justin Fairfax. Loving the music this morning. Sister Yvette, you're 2 for 2 so far. As I said, we at the end of this period of Voices of the Village playlists, there will be new musical griots. And I think we've already seen at least 2, if not 3. Governor Fairfax, once again, when we look at the past 4 years, your leadership has stood out. You've served nationally with the organization of lieutenant governors. You've been a mentor to other lieutenant governors across the state. Talk about your national experience.
Yeah, well, we thought it was important that the progress that we've been able to make here in Virginia against the tide. As you remember, we were the first election after the Trump election in 2016, and so we were a signal to the nation that we could go in a different direction. And I was honored to serve as chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association and traveled around the country and really supported some really fantastic candidates who are now in office. We have a record number of minority and women candidates who were elected in 2018. I traveled to Michigan, Illinois, and Hawaii. I also went down to Georgia and Florida to support Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum in their primaries, which they both won. And we have 3 African-American lieutenant governors in the Midwest. In Wisconsin, Michigan, and Illinois. And I went and campaigned for and with each one of them. So they are now fighting for the things that we've been able to achieve here in Virginia. They're fighting to expand Medicaid in their states, which we did, again, on my tie-breaking votes. And now 550,000 more Virginians have health insurance. And if you achieve that in other states, that's millions more Americans who have the security of health insurance. So these elections matter. Leadership matters. Having courage, in those tough moments matters, and that's really what we've tried to, export to the country and continue here in Virginia.
Well, you have a name recognition across the country, and that only brings political blessings to the Commonwealth of Virginia. When people can see you around the country as a competent, courageous, committed, and compassionate elected official, that bids well for the future. Brother Damien just writes in, he says, good morning, Gary and Voices of the Village. With my family in Northern Virginia and some of my loved ones stated that they don't know much of what he's done as they remembered him being against Northam at one point. Could you list some of his accomplishments as lieutenant governor that the public may have not broadcasted? Well, we just did, Brother Damien, but we're going to repeat it for your sake. Governor Fairfax, talk about the accomplishments you made as lieutenant governor and the vision that you had in inspiring Governor Northam to be more progressive.
We, as you mentioned, talked about some of the really landmark progressive achievements that we've been able to make, and I can't stress enough the impact of me breaking the tie votes in the Senate of Virginia to expand Medicaid to 550,000 more Virginians. I think that was a signature achievement, accomplishment. But also, again, legalizing marijuana, becoming the first Southern state to do so. That has significant economic, but also criminal justice reform implications. And, I've led to raise the minimum wage here in Virginia. The first time it's gone up since 2009. It was $7.25 an hour. It's now $9.50. We want to get it up to $15 an hour in the next several years. And education investment, affordable housing. We put millions of dollars into the Housing Trust Fund based on leadership from the Lieutenant Governor's office, dealing with the crisis of evictions that predated the COVID-19 pandemic, but has become worse in the midst of this crisis that has affected every community in Virginia. And so really on every front that impacts people's everyday lives, education, healthcare, criminal justice reform, housing, we've led. And then, of course, bringing Virginia into the present and dealing with.
Before we get to the present, repeat what your letter, your public letter that pretty much called out Governor Northam for being too passive and sitting on his hands. You called for the closure of schools of higher education, colleges and universities, to keep our kids and faculty safe. You called for the closing of public schools to keep our teachers and students safe. This is before the governor would act. That was your impetus. And so, Brother Damien, I want to remind you of something, Brother Damien. Your family said that they don't know what he's done as they remember him being against Northam. That's not true. Northam was against Fairfax. It was Northam who colluded with the Democratic Party and even the Republicans to keep Justin Fairfax from being named governor in the middle of Northam's scandal. So do not get it twisted. This is a political smear job, okay, to keep a strong black man from being governor in the capital of the Confederacy. That's what we're looking at, Brother Damien. Brother Lamont writes in, Justin Fairfax, he's much more than a politician. He's the people's champ. And I say amen. Governor Fairfax, which say ye?
Well, I thank you so much for that. And again, I've always been for the people, above anything else. And the people need someone who, has a voice that's willing to stand up for them, because oftentimes what they really care about and what they're really concerned about goes unaddressed if folks don't stand up for them. And so,
but they also people, at the ordinary level, people respect courage. And what we have seen in the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus are a bunch of cookie-cutter, scared Negro politicians. And you stand out against them. By the way, they didn't support you because they're so scared and so, got their backs bent so much in order to get more money from Dominion Energy and in order to get a little rub on the head by the white politicians that they are afraid to stand up. So they never supported you as they should have. But we see through that, and just wanted to publicly say that. Brother Damien writes back in, thanks for allowing the platform to address the concerns. That's what the platform of the Gary Flowers Show should be doing, not to just promote cookie-cutter politicians. One thing I've seen, Governor Fairfax, in my 35 years of politics, the white power structure across the country either likes or commends strong black men and women once they're dead, or if they take their claws away. It's almost like you're at the zoo. Yeah, you like to pet the tiger when he doesn't have any claws. Well, you are an elected official that has claws. You've got the claws of competence, the claws of courage. You've got the claws of commitment and the claws of compassion. And that's why you are a threat to the power structure, the white power structure, politically in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I know you're supposed to be talking, but I got to get all of this out because,
Yeah, look, it's your show, and you always have, compelling things to say. And so, again, I think that when you talk directly to the people, and I've spent so much time in communities, in our schools, in our churches, in people's, homes, really listening to them. And I think that's what it really animates so much of what we do, is because they feel like they're not being given a level playing field. They feel like they need someone to fight for them. And so our platform around educational investment for their children and their grandchildren, getting health care to everyone, which is our continued fight and focus, and, making sure that we don't have these intergenerational barriers that have stopped so many in our communities from rising, that those are finally dismantled, and it takes leadership to do that.
What is your plain message to the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia as it relates to citizen engagement and the need for people to actively participate, not only in voting, but participate in their local governments?
Well, I tell people this democracy belongs to you, and these offices belong to you. And the only way that people can ensure that it is their interests that are being reflected and fought for is that they come out and vote and make sure that they are electing people who listen to them and who fight for them. And so, this is your opportunity to come out and claim what is rightfully yours, which is this democracy and these offices. And I tell people, come to Lieutenant Governor's office, they say, we really love your office. It's really nice. But actually, this is your office. We're all just temporarily in these offices, and our job when we're there is to make your life better and to fight for you. And so that's just a very different mentality, and I think that's why so many, folks in the community and so many of our people have just come out and really fought hard for the truth, and have fought hard to make sure that we can carry forward their message. And that's what I've tried to do every day that I've been in office.
Absolutely, and we thank you for it. So as we go now, I want to thank you once again for being able to call in today, Governor Fairfax. We appreciate you. We respect you. And we thank you for encouraging people to get out and vote today.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
All righty. Stay strong.
Thanks for that. Take care. Bye-bye.
All righty. 45 minutes after the hour.